With the release of patch 7.1, Final Fantasy XIV has seen an update to the Hall of the Novice. The Hall of Novices is an introductory course for newer players to help get into how to play Final Fantasy XIV. These courses range from 3 different roles: your tank, your healer, your DPS, and they kind of teach you the basics on how to play those jobs, whether it be tanks tanking and keep an eye out for when new things spawn, as well as making sure you keep yourself alive by dodging AoEs. Healers, making sure your party's safe, making sure you're safe, and when there's downtime, maybe do a little DPS. And as well as DPS, beating things up and watching out for new things spawning. What this new course adds is not only does it teach you dodging specific things such as AoEs, it teaches you very common types of markers you'd see in battle. Now, it doesn't fully encompass everything, but with this new update, I highly recommend any newer player to take their time, go through and study up what all these markers mean. Not only do you gain valuable information, but you also gain some rewards that help you in your leveling experience. Before we start, I would like to throw a question to you guys, start a discussion. 1. What more things do you want to see in Hall of the Novice to help newer players get situated to 14? And 2, do you believe that Hall of the Novice should be 100% mandatory to continue the game? Well, with that, let's go and see what the new update has to offer. We are given a total of 3 new exercises with their own set of mechanics to go through. Starting off with exercise 1, this set focuses on player targeted markers. First up is personal AoE markers. Not only do these markers encompass the player targeted, but anyone else standing inside these AoEs will also be hit. Other players may receive the same marker. So long as you are not standing inside of each other's AoE, you should be fine to overlap the AoEs, unless the mechanic calls for otherwise. Our next lesson teaches us the opposite of the first one. For this marker, we have a stack marker. Pretty much for this one, you want as many people huddled together under this AoE as possible, as the damage taken will spread out amongst the players inside. The more players inside this stack marker, the more damage is spread across all players, thus making it easier to survive and heal through. Our next lesson takes us to what the game calls lethal markers, but we as a community know them as tank busters. For this specific iteration, when you see this one, it is known as the laser tank buster. When you see this marker, get away from the target designated, which is 99% of the time the tank. What you want to do is, as a tank, you want to face this away from the party, because when the attack comes out, it's going to be a straight laser that not only hits you as the tank, but anyone standing in front or behind you. If you're not the tank, just make sure you're not standing in the way of the laser. And for the last of the player targeted markers, we have the homing area of effect marker. When you see this symbol, what you want to do is move away from the party and wait for the AoE to appear under your feet. This will mark the starting location of the AoEs that will soon follow you. You then want to run away as far as possible because the AoEs will travel in a straight line from where it started to you. Do note it doesn't retrace your steps, it just goes straight from where it initiated to where you're currently located. Make sure that between those locations, no other party member is in the way. Bringing us to our second set of exercises, this set focuses on more ground targeted markers. Starting off, we have the knockback markers. For this specific one, it's the radial knockback marker. Look at the arrows of which these are pointing. Those will be the directions you'll be launched for these knockbacks. For this one, it's from the center outward, and you want to be standing as close to the start of the arrows as you can, or it'll knock you back in that direction. Look to see the direction you're going and make sure that there's nothing in the way. And then you want to make sure that when you do get knocked back, you want to get knocked back just enough where you don't land inside any dangerous AoEs or death walls. Our second lesson is very similar to the first one, except this one has an area of effect to it. This area of effect will still knock you back. So what you want to do is you want to stand as close to the area without standing inside of it. Should you be standing inside of it, when the effect goes off, you will take either a large amount of damage or just be downed. Once again, watch the direction of which you're being moved to. Just make sure you're not being pushed in anything dangerous. For our third lesson of the second set, we bring us to what the game calls flare markers, but I personally like to call them proximity markers because that seems a bit more accurate to what's going on. For these markers, what you pretty much want to do is watch where it starts. It'll be pulsating an AoE from its point of origin, and what you want to be doing is standing as far away from the center point as you can. The further you stand away, the less damage you take. You can't always be standing at the furthest point, so just stand as far as you can. For our last lesson of the set, we are given tower markers. Whenever you see these pop up, make sure you have at least one player standing inside of them. If you do not have anybody standing inside of these towers, they will explode, generally either dealing large damage to the group or giving them a nasty status effect. For anyone that does decide to stand inside the tower, you will be given a little bit of damage. If there is more than one person inside the tower, the damage will not be distributed and you'll both take the same amount. Finally, we move on to our third exercise. This seems more of like the miscellaneous set or like the other set of mechanics, but they are just as important as the other two, so let's go ahead and go through them. First up, we're given proximity tethers. When you see these tethers given to you, you want to move away from whatever's attached to the other side. Generally, when the tether turns a purple or loses its arrows, that's when you know you're at a safe enough distance. For our second lesson of the set, it's just like the first one. It's a tether, but this is a different tether. These are intercept tether markers. Whenever you see these, if needed, you can intercept these tethers to have it latch onto yourself, and then you can move it off to a safe location, or whatever the target was going to take, you can take yourself, if needed. Our third lesson brings us the gaze mechanic, or the red eye. Pretty much whenever you see these eyes, it just means look away. You want your character facing away, you don't need to point your camera, right? And when the mechanic resolves, if you are facing away, then your character will be safe. Last but not least, they kind of threw Asuna in here for, I guess, just to throw it in here. But with this, pretty much, if you're ever affected by an effect that you can't really avoid, or maybe you stood in the wrong AoE, sometimes you'll be giving a debuff that can be cleansed by the healer. This is where they use Asuna on you. In this exercise, you're pretty much bound, and once the healer, or you as the healer, unbind someone else, they're free to move and leave the AoE. At the end of each exercise set, you're then given a little test to see if you can handle each of the mechanics back to back. Not only is it the same thing as they were in the lessons, but they also give you a little bit of something extra per each test, just to see if you can handle the mechanic while doing other things at the same time. And that's pretty much everything the Hall of the Novice has to offer in terms of playable exercises. But if you're looking for something a little more, take a gander at the combat guide you can locate at the bottom left hand corner of the Hall of the Novice window. And that pretty much gives you like a list. If you go to types of markers, it gives you a list of like things you can look for that weren't in the exercise, but they do go over them. There are a couple things in here that could be in here that aren't in here, such as the abandonment markers or the person-to-person chains, but it's a pretty good read. I'd recommend going through it whenever you can, especially if you haven't played the game for a long time and you need to get yourself updated. Reading through these will help you get up to speed really quick. That pretty much brings us to the end of everything that the Hall of the Novice has with this update. I once again asked the question, what would you like to see in Hall of the Novice moving forward? And 2, do you believe the Hall of the Novice should be 100% mandatory moving forward in order to progress the game? But anyways, thank you very much for coming by and watching the video. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want more from Cutman. Check out the streams. I stream on YouTube and on Twitch. I play Final Fantasy XIV. I play other games as well if you're interested. All the links will be in the description down below. But once again, thank you very much for coming by and watching. You have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later.